So today I want to talk about hollowing, not as an entity in the lore, but more as a narrative concept working in tandem with the other narrative concepts in each Dark Souls game to convey some kind of idea. This is going to be another shorter video. Of course, this is by no means exhaustive. There are a myriad of ways you might want to read these ideas, and that's fine. This isn't the end-all be-all, I just want to share how I like to read these concepts. So to start off with Dark Souls 1, which I think in some ways is the most interesting of the three, hollowing is explained as the end result of the undead curse. There's a degree of inevitability to it, but diegetically it's understood that hollowing isn't all-powerful, that in some sense it gets its power from our willingness to submit to it. Laurentius, the crestfallen guy, they've both been branded by the dark sign, but they're not hollows yet, and they have at least some degree of control over when exactly they'll become hollows. The Crestfallen has given up on trying to link the fire, but he's found a new purpose in guiding undead arrivals. Once it's clear that you're going to make it to the kiln, he no longer has a reason to go on, so he goes hollow. Laurentius, for his part, is a pyromancer, who similarly goes hollow after being rejected by Quelana. Or perhaps he simply couldn't find her. However you want to phrase it, the point is, Laurentius dedicated himself to forming an understanding of fire, and a relationship with it. When Quelana rejects him, that journey ends, and there's nowhere left for him to go, so he hollows. In the lore of Dark Souls 1, hollowing is the inevitable result of the undead curse. But more often than not, in the story told by the player's interactions with the game world, the hollowing out of a person occurs when they lose their purpose, their reason for existing. Someone pointed out to me in the comments of one of my videos that because Dark Souls, as interactive media, lacks the mechanical ability to depict your character being hollowed out completely, it's possible to interpret the act of quitting, giving into the demands of the game, as hollowing out, which I really like. The fear of hollowing is existential, I would almost say Lovecraftian. It's the ultimate loss of oneself. And I think it's meaningful then that the inevitability of such a thing is challenged. The world is telling you you're destined to go hollow, but you don't have to listen. Find something to live for, and keep going.
Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go hollow.
Dark Souls 2 depicts hollowing in much less abstract terms, and I think uses that specificity to deconstruct the idea of personhood. In Dark Souls 2, hollowing isn't framed principally as a loss of sanity, but rather as a loss of memory. If we look at Lucatiel in contrast to her counterparts from the first game, we can see that in her case, hollowing isn't abrupt, and it doesn't stem from the loss of any one thing about her. Rather, it's the end result of her gradually forgetting her past. In Dark Souls 2, people are their lived experiences. They are their memories and their ideals, and when all of those things are stripped away, the capacity for sanity makes no difference. This is not a person anymore.
I found my thoughts growing hazy. My memories are fading, oldest first. I am frightened. If everything should fade, what will be left of me?
And I think this understanding of personhood is reflected in the game's depiction of humanity's relationship with fire. As Aldia and Vendrick see it, the original humanity is gone. What wanders the world now is a facsimile that has only ever known the Age of Fire. Gwyn may have shackled mankind, but at this point it doesn't matter, because humans have become willing prisoners. Just like Gwyn, fire is all they know. It is responsible for their memories, their ideals, their lived experience. And if you take that away, well, what difference does it make whether they hollow out or not? This is not a person any longer. Surprising no one, Dark Souls 3 is definitely the most convoluted of the trilogy. But as I've argued before, I think more than the other two games, 3 is a game about dissent. It is about a rejection of the Age of Fire, not by any one group or individual, but by people from all walks of life, all different factions, all different systems of belief. To say again, hollowing is existentially terrifying. It's for that reason, perhaps more than any pragmatic one, that humanity has always run so far and so fast from it. All across the Dark Souls trilogy, hollows and those branded have been ostracized and subjugated and hunted for sport. It's terrifying to imagine a kind of purgatory like this, and to have to look it in the eye just proves too much for humans to bear. And so I think it speaks volumes to the gravity of suffering caused by the Age of Fire that in Dark Souls 3, a large number of people begin to believe that hollowing may in fact be preferable to the hellish cycle of fire linking. Now I'm not really talking about the hollows of Londor, because I think they're more pragmatic than that. Clearly their definition of hollowing is different from what's generally depicted. They're smart. They're not just trying to go hollow, they're trying to use the constraints of the undead curse to fashion themselves a brighter future. I'm speaking about Lothric, and more broadly, what Lothric represents. Now, is Lothric himself going hollow? I don't know. The nature of his and Lorien's curses are left pretty vague. But Lothric is uniquely ideologically opposed not only to linking the fire, but to taking action at all. What else does he want? It seems like nothing. He just wants things to run their course, even if every last human hollows out before the end. And you get the sense from listening to his dialogue that in his eyes, this is a mercy, that perhaps we are already in a purgatory and we just can't see it.
Ill-starred are they who take the throne. I shall not stand among them. This spot marks our grave, but you may rest here too, if you like.
Why this specific course of action? Why not try to snuff out the flames himself? I don't really know, but I think one possible answer lies in hollowing itself. If you choose to extinguish the flames at the end of the game, it's revealed that the embers of the Lords may someday be rekindled and the fire linked again. But by prolonging the end of fire as long as possible, letting the dark sign run its course, Lothric could see to it that there were no sane humans left to relink the fire. To him, perhaps that would have been preferable to continuing the cycle. Who's to say he's wrong? Of course, he may very well have succeeded, if not for the rise of unkindled ash. Alright, so I want to do a quick update for my regular viewers. I know it's been a while since I posted. There's a few reasons for that. For one thing, midterms, real life has to take priority. Secondly, the reception on my last video was lukewarm, to say the least. And, that's okay, these things happen. But I think it was good for me to take a little break and center myself. And thirdly, I haven't been super happy with the direction my videos have been going. Don't get me wrong, I definitely think the production value and stuff has improved since the channel started. But I feel like I've been talking a lot about lore recently, the minutiae of individual words and stuff. And that sort of thing is pretty important in the Dark Souls community. When I make a claim, I feel the need to support it, which seems reasonable, but then we very quickly end up going down rabbit holes about the meaning of individual words, and I gotta tell you, I just find it immensely boring and tiring, honestly. I started this channel at the suggestion of my friends and my mom, if you can believe it. Because I kept coming to them and talking about how I thought the question of whether to link the fire was more complicated than it sometimes gets credit for. And, none of them play Dark Souls, so they had no clue what I was talking about. But, the point is, I wasn't interested in deciphering the metaphysical properties of Estus flasks or whatever. I wanted to talk about themes, the kind of stuff that games and stories are built around. And, of course, there's overlap between those types of interpretation, but they aren't one and the same. A couple months ago, I made a video about Aldridge, and I'm actually really happy with it. It's my favorite video I've made to date. But looking back on it now, there's like 3 minutes that I totally could have cut out that just don't really contribute to the thesis of the video. And that I think I just felt like I had to include because, it's a video about Dark Souls on the internet. Obviously, you have to read a bunch of lore tabs and do some theory crafting or whatever. All that to say, I'm going to take some time and think about how I want to construct my videos going forward. I know this one was kind of short, but this style of criticism is the kind that I actually find interesting. I don't just want to read the Dark Souls wiki to you or whatever. We all have access to that. I like this more interpretive kind of stuff. So anyways, thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, I forgot to mention, we passed 700 subs. That's nuts. I hope you all stay safe. May the flames guide your way.